Many objects interact with the FactoryTalk View tag database or other tags used in an application. This allows for control and display configuration. Interactive objects can display controller data to the operator and potentially allow operators to modify data. You can add interactive objects to a graphic display from the Objects menu or from the Objects toolbar. There are 8 different types of push buttons. Important: do not use push buttons as emergency stops. Emergency stop buttons must be physically wired to the machine. Click the plus sign on the icons for more information on each push button. Button push buttons can be set up to run various FactoryTalk View SE commands, including navigating to other display screens, setting the value of tags, controlling data logging, controlling login and logout functions. Maintained push buttons toggle between 2 values. This type of button is useful for changing a setting within a machine or process. For example, use this push button for changing modes, such as auto to manual. Multi-state push buttons let an operator display and select multiple options using a single button. The multi-state push button displays the current state of a process or operation by showing a different color, caption, or image to reflect different states. Interlocked push buttons work in groups and share the same tag. They work together like the preset station selector buttons on a car radio. Pressing one cancels another. Latched push buttons lock in the on position and must be unlocked by another button or process to return to the off position. This type of button is useful for starting a machine or process. For example, use the latched push button when you want the value control to start a process within a programmable logic controller and remain set until the process is completed. You can also use a latched push button. Momentary push buttons start a process or action by sending a value to the data source. Momentary push buttons send one value to the data source when pressed and another value when released. A momentary push button can perform 3 types of actions. Normally open sends a value of 1 when the button is pressed and a value of 0 when the button is released. Normally closed sends a value of 0 when the button is pressed and a value of 1 when the button is released. Value sends the values you assign to the button press and release actions. Navigation push buttons can display the previous display screen, the next display screen, a list of previously shown display screens. Ramp push buttons increase or decrease the value of a tag by either an integer or floating point value. You can use 2 ramp push buttons together to create an increase-decrease control. Numeric and string display objects let operators view tag or expression values in a graphic display at runtime. Numeric and string input objects let operators read or write tag values at runtime. An input object can also be set up to display a tag's current value, eliminating the need to create separate input and display objects. Indicator objects show the status of a process or operation by showing colors, captions, images, or options to indicate different states. You specify the state values of the multi-state indicator, and then at runtime, the object displays the state whose value matches the indicator tag value at the data source. In this example, state 0, pump off, is displayed when the pump is not running. Once the pump is running, the multi-state indicator changes to state 1, pump on. Gauge and graph objects show a range of values and relationships between variables. The gauge control will display tag or expression values as a sweeping line. With a bar graph object, 1 or 2 thresholds with unique fill colors may be configured. A scale object is often used in conjunction with a bar graph to show tick marks. Key objects represent keys on a keyboard and are used with touchscreen or mouse data entry. Adding key navigation push buttons to a display list selector can help a machine operator use the objects efficiently. Advanced objects provide ways for operators to monitor, analyze, and interact with application data at runtime. One of these advanced objects is the display list selector, which can be used in combination with the key objects. The display list selector shows a list of graphic displays that the operator can choose from and open at runtime. The operator can move through the list and select a graphic display. When the operator presses Enter, the selected display opens. There are other objects such as OLE and ActiveX control objects. OLE objects such as spreadsheets, charts, or text are produced by other Microsoft Windows applications. The OLE objects that are available depend on the software installed on the system. ActiveX objects such as gauges or sliders can be created using a tool like Visual Basic or purchased from a third-party vendor and then set up to initiate an action in FactoryTalk View SE software. The Properties box is used to configure an object's appearance and behavior. In the Properties dialog box, the features of the graphic object are organized in tabs. The number of tabs and their contents depend on the type of graphic object. This graphic shows the Properties dialog box for a momentary push button. The General tab will be in view when the Properties dialog box opens. All graphic objects have a General tab. Each graphic object varies in its setup parameters, but they all have items in common, such as appearance, size, and position. There is a Common tab for every graphic object. Many of the graphic objects have a Connections tab, where you specify the tags or the expression the object will use for transferring data. When configuring parameters in the Connections tab, the Tag Browser will help assign direct reference, HMI, or system tags to an object. The Tag Browser lets you look for and select tags on any of the data servers that are part of the application, including HMI, RS links, and OPC data servers. The left side of the Tag Browser shows the application's hierarchy of folders, which can represent areas and tag folders. It can also show server names and icons for the data servers in an application. When you click a folder on the left, its contents are displayed on the right. The Tag Substitution tool is used to replace the text strings in graphic objects or embedded variables in a graphic display. You can find and replace text strings in tag names, expressions, and FactoryTalk View Studio commands. You must first select the graphic object that contains text strings you want to replace, and then from the Edit menu, you can access the Tag Substitution tool. You cannot use Tag Substitution to replace text created using the Text tool. Tip: Graphic objects must be grouped for tag substitution to be effective on multiple graphic objects. Read the information on the screen and drag the given options to the matching target spaces. Here is a guided activity on how to add push-button and numeric display graphic objects to a FactoryTalk View SE application. Follow the instructions on the screen to perform the steps. Click Start when you're ready.